Welcome to Nest Builders, where we build strong families one conversation at a time. Today, we're diving into an incredibly fun and transformative topic, playful parenting. We believe that play is not just for kids, but a powerful tool for parents to connect, teach, and grow alongside their children. Joining us today is Michelle Tover, founder of Practical Life Parenting, an expert and coach in creating meaningful, joyful interactions between parents and their children. Michelle, tell us a little bit about yourself and Practical Life Parenting.
Sure. So I became a certified parent coach after teaching in the classroom, a Montessori classroom, for over 25 years. And it was really during COVID that I saw there was such a need to support parents on their journey to raise children. I didn't always have the time to dive deep with parents when I was a classroom teacher. So it was just a natural transition for me when I started my business to just really help parents find their true potential and giving them the opportunity to just really, make a difference in the way they're interacting with their children. So, really, as a longtime Montessori teacher, now certified parent coach for almost 4 years, I really help parents break the cycle of yelling, anger, and guilt and become sturdier leaders for their children. And I do that by helping them gain better communication tools and respectful discipline tools. I'm a mom myself, so I know what it's like to parent in this modern world that we live in. My house can be crazy at times with three boys, and but we just love to have fun together and laugh and and make long-lasting memories as much as we can.
Good. Well, that's so important. I think all of us want to be the best parents that we can possibly be, but we have lots of challenges along the way. So I'm really excited to dive in today's topic and learn some new strategies from you today. So let's go ahead and kick things off and just jump right into our topic today, which is the power of play through parenting. So why is play so important?
So, there was a recent, the US Surgeon General sent a recent advisory just saying how parental stress is having a huge impact on our nation. And they're calling for fundamental shifts on how we prioritize the mental health of parents. 33% of parents reported high levels of stress, and 48% of parents say that on most days it's completely overwhelming. So parents really do need better support to thrive. And we all know that parenting is the hardest job you'll ever have.
Mhm.
And there is a lot more challenges in this day and age than we've had in the past. And so really, it's important to think about, when we're raising children, it's important to, care for parents, the leaders in the homes. And so I feel like a lot of these stressors that parents are facing, you know, play can't always, cure them all, like financial stresses, other cultural norms, those things. But play does give you a sense of connection, affection, and love with your children. It like lowers your blood pressure naturally. Um, and so I think that parents need more support, and there are some ways to kind of de-stress. And so that's the work here, which is kind of balancing a little bit more of fun and lightheartedness in your day to day.
Wonderful. And that, I mean, who doesn't love play, right? I think that sometimes it's good to just go back to the roots of being a child and having fun with your kids and letting them see that other side of you too. Can really help open the door to a lot of other conversations. At least I found that with my own kids, which is is really, really nice and a great reminder that we need to be intentional about that. Michelle, tell us about some of the benefits of play.
Sure, definitely. There's several reasons that play is helpful for children. Number one, it builds their confidence. It helps them discover their bodies and just like how things work in their environment. Play is essentially the language of children. Like they're wired for play naturally, even teenagers. So I think it's really important to remember that for children. But there are also, some deeper levels of the benefits of play. Not only physical play is important for children to discover their environments, but emotional play. It really gives them an opportunity to manage their emotions and like bite-sized scenarios within the play. Socially, it helps them understand how to interact and at a low state kind of platform for them to interact not only with their peers or their siblings, but also with their parents. But there's also cognitive and creative and communication benefits that help within their development um, as children. And so I think if we look at it even further, we can, see that play can be very healing for us as adults, right? And I kind of mentioned already the stressors that we have, but if you look even deeper and you kind of think about, does play come easy to me or is it a little bit daunting? If you kind of peel those layers back and think about when you were a child and and maybe we're needing some of those needs to be met as far as your caregivers taking the time to really, just share joy and lightheartedness together. Um, you can think about like if there is a little bit of barrier, a little bit of disconnect in that, and so that is maybe getting in the way of how you're showing up with your children. So it can be very healing for adults to really explore those areas. That's something I do with many clients. It's just, even some parents might find it like, oh, I don't want to sit there and play imaginary play with my child. Like that's not what I want to do because I have a million other things to do, right? Like I totally get that. But
Yes.
then there might also be another deeper barrier that's happening there. So it's really important to kind of explore those. Um, I would say, just starting small, like 15, at least 15 minutes a day of just letting your child take the lead of, and it doesn't have to be like a huge thing that they're setting up. It could just be a fun game you play in the car, or it could just be, a silly kind of game that you play.
Mhm.
But starting small is really going to help build that habit until it becomes a natural habit.
Right.
A lot of times children are needing just that connection piece, and it's going to allow you to free up a lot more time in the transitions of your day if you meet them with that connection early on.
Right. And that is a great point. I know it and with my own kids, my husband is way better at, playing and getting down on, I mean, that he's the fun one, right? And I have to work a little bit harder at it. And I've had to really learn of to kind of let them take control where sometimes when I would get in a certain scenario, as simple as like having a tea party, I would want to set things a certain way, and even taking a step back and realizing myself, this is letting them kind of, as you said, let them lead it, and being willing to kind of step back. And I think that makes it more fun in the end for you and also for them as well to want to for them to continue to ask you to get on their level and play with them more frequently.
Yes, definitely. We're constantly being pulled in different directions, right? As parents, whether, there's distractions or there's to-do lists. And so sometimes, we also have our own things that come up if that we want to maybe lean into teaching or fixing or correcting versus like what you said, just kind of sitting back and just letting it kind of happen freely. I think it allows your child to have the a sense of being in charge, which children
Great.
aren't don't have those opportunities often, right? They're often pushed into schedules and pushed to time kind of constraints that are, not allowing them to kind of have that autonomy. So I think it's important to kind of carve out that time as much as you can, or even just, I know something that we used to do in my family is maybe have one person in the family pick a certain time in the month where they plan an activity as a family, and it gives you a sense to kind of look inside what their interests are, and you have that opportunity to share it together as a family.
Great. That's a great idea. Love it.
Yeah. And there we can get even deeper with play and exploring like the different actual quadrants of play. There are like four that I can kind of talk about today. The first one is co-regulation play. And that's really just like kind of what you were saying, surrendering to the moment, just being conscious and curious, and it can be child-led play, and it's just really helping your child meet them where they're at. So, an example of that could be roughhousing, right?
Mhm.
And that's a topic that some parents maybe might feel uncomfortable. Like, well, what does roughhousing look like? And if I do it too much, is my child going to be aggressive? Like, what is the
Right.
point? And so, what I have found with my three boys is, whether it's having a pillow fight or, they're older now, but they do have their moments still.
Nerf gun
Wrestling,
wars.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's more like wrestling now. Or I remember they used to take like the cushions of the couch and like ram them together. They used to play like this force field hand game where they would push back and forth. So whatever that is, dance parties. What I have found is like pausing and restarting in like 30-second rounds. It just allows the energy to rise and then fall and then
Okay.
rise and fall. And that what happens is they're releasing that cortisol that's trapped in their body in a more manageable way. So just having it, not to where they're just going to go and hurt each other, but we're doing it in a way that's a little more manageable to number one, safety, and number two, for that energy to kind of rise and release. So another way form of play is the healing and processing play. And so this is great to put your child, like do role playing. And if there's something going on in your child's life that's causing them stress, you can role play it out or even reverse the roles so that your child can experience a different perspective. And
Love
so
it.
this allows them to really process some things that maybe in the heat of the moment they're unable to, and it really gives them the tools to then like move forward with that experience. Um, I know that I remember when my first my first child was 2.5, and then I had a baby. And so, a lot of families go through transitions like that, right? Where there's a new member of the family and they're feeling certain feelings and maybe expressing them in ways that are not typical of how they were before the baby. And so I remember just buying like a cheap pair of walkie-talkies and giving my child a sense of power. When I was tied up with the baby, but I would tell him, I said, "Hey, Giovanni, you're in charge. You're the security guy." And he would be like checking the windows and like going in the different rooms and talking to me on the walkie-talkie. And this gave us a sense of like, it was a fun way to play and interact and
Great.
give him a sense of power. He loved playing that game, but he would also check on his baby brother and check on me. And so it gave him that sense of feeling a different role in a playful way, but also processing and healing those feelings that he was having when his baby brother joined. Um, Another form of play is teaching. The word, discipline means to teach. So teaching and discipline is really modeling and teaching through empathy. So games and songs, stories. Children love to hear stories. So whether it's a story about you and your childhood, or it's a made up story with the characters that they're really into, and then there's some sort of problem and conflict that is leads into resolution. Storytelling can be very, very helpful when teaching lessons.
Yes, I think
um,
I always look for a good book too. If
yeah,
I can, anytime I'm struggling with certain challenges or areas of development that my children are going through, if I don't have my own, a lot of times I'll have a personal experience I will try to share with them. But I think being able to read a story to them is so beneficial too. And it helps them feel like they're not alone.
absolutely. It's relatable, especially if it's someone their same age or someone that they can, kind of connect with. And there's so many great stories and books out there.
Right.
And children love. I remember when, I don't remember which kid it was, but there was one book you could order, and like you could put their name in certain thing and they would create the book. And so I remember my son loved that book because it was like his name would pop up in the book.
Yes.
So those are fun too. Um, Spontaneous play is really just walking through life with the lens that everything has the potential to be silly and lighthearted. This can be from singing to, making silly accents or voices. It's just anything that's gonna make your child laugh, you laugh, right? And just have a fun time. So I would say those four areas are really important to kind of think about when you're playing and interacting. It's not necessarily taking out a board game, those are great too, but we can kind of see the importance of the different styles of play and how that can really help your child have a deeper and whole experience in their development.
Right. Well, I love those are all really great strategies. I think I love the one in particular about role playing, at least in the phase of life I'm in. I think that can be super beneficial for, certain conversations. We're in that stage where we're having trouble with some of our friends and they're not always so nice. And I think instead of just a lot of times I will tend to give advice, but I think pivoting to role playing and helping them actually, work out through a scenario is so impactful. I will definitely be trying that.
Yeah, and even practicing like what a response could be in that scenario.
Right.
It helps them be a little bit more prepared and learn to advocate for themselves if it is one of those situations. I think that's really important for children to have those tools, and even like with siblings, right? Like a lot of times there's sibling conflict, and you can role reverse those scenarios so that they have a chance to see the other side, the other perspective uh,
Mhm.
of what it feels like, if a toy is taken away or without asking, or someone goes in the bedroom without asking. Those conflicts can kind of come to resolution through play and those role playing kind of scenarios.
What are some easy ways to integrate play into daily routines?
Sure. So I think transitions are always, well, we shouldn't say always, but they're very commonly, what parents come to me with of like needing support around, whether that's the morning transition of getting ready for school, or that's bedtime or dinner, or, after school. So I think incorporating moments of play there can be helpful in easing that transition. For example, it's time to, your child is playing and they're really into the play, and it's time to transition to bath time. And so that can be a bit of a struggle to help
Yeah.
your child do that. So incorporating something fun, like, do you want to jump on my back and fly to the bathtub, or do you want to hop like a frog to the bathroom? That might help with that transition, and that's just this very small moment, right? Of incorporating play in a transition. So I think, like I mentioned earlier, children are wired and ready for play, and so in those harder moments, if you can access play, I think that's really important for the child and the adult. I would also say, like, if your child is coming to you and wanting to play or wanting to do something with you, and you're like cooking dinner, or you're in a time where you really just can't access that time, I think it's important to communicate that clearly to your child. Um, like, for example, mommy would love to play, dinosaurs with you, but I need to finish up dinner. So, I know some families use timers to help children understand how much time it's going to take before, or on the microwave, or there's a little timer thing they can access as well, or maybe just letting them know, you know, I need a couple more minutes here to finish up dinner, and then I'm going to meet you on the rug to play whatever it is. That's life, right? We have
Exactly.
priorities and things that there's going to be times they have to wait. I also would look at your commute, like if you are in a car for a period of time to drive to school or wherever it is with your children. I think those are great moments to play fun games. My youngest, we used to always play the A through Z game, where you have a different category. So it could be like a city or state that starts with A, B, C. You kind of take turns, or animals that start with those letters. Rhyming games, um, different games like that you can do in the car, that just kind of build that time and that laughter together, would
Yes.
be something I suggest as well.
And not asking how much longer every 5 seconds too. Yes, I am a big fan of car games, but I mean, it really does show, even when you're talking about to incorporating play to in those transition periods, because we all know, yeah, getting kids ready for bed or taking the bath, or those can be very difficult times, and that play can make that better. And at the nest schools, play is a huge part of everything that we do. That's how we teach our kids. That's what we believe in. And it is amazing how play can really transform, a whole situation for a child, and really get them bought into whatever it is that you're trying to teach them or that you're trying to get them to do. So it really is for full circle in all parts of your life. So those are some great tips that you gave us. Michelle, we've talked a lot about, incorporating play with younger kids, but our kids get bigger. I know your children are getting older, mine are getting older. How can you use play as your kids kind of progress in age into teenagers, and what might that look like if so?
Sure. I think, first of all, you each know your child best. For example, my middle son, my 15-year-old, he can transition to play very quickly, whereas my younger one is a little more sensitive. So if he's kind of having a moment, I can't necessarily go into play right away until that kind of emotion comes to completion. So I think that's important to know. But I can share a recent story with my 15-year-old. Um, it was actually, I think, like 2 weeks ago. I had asked him to walk the dog for his brother because his older brother was at work. And of course, he's like, well, it's not my day to walk. He started giving me back, pushback a little bit because it wasn't his day. And so I had a choice, right? I could kind of, in, take the invitation of the power struggle and fall into that, or I
Mhm.
could access play in this situation. And so, because of his personality, and because he's recently been really into watching martial arts, I just completely surprised him and like did this like round kick and was like, let's go. And I tackled him to the couch and we were just kind of like playing around and he was laughing. And then after a while, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I had enough. I know it's not your day, but I really need you to walk the dog. And he's like, fine. And then we went off with the dog. So that's just an example of how, knowing your child and knowing like how they can really just kind of shift into different different zone can allow them to kind of reconnect and understand that I see you. I know it's not your day. I understand this is not what you want to do. Like I see that, but at the same time, your brother's unavailable and I'm asking you to do this and we're going to do this in a fun way. So I think it's important to really kind of look at the situation and see if this is something that is going to really help you access more affection and connection and autonomy within your relationship at the moment. Teenagers love to anything related to music or just being goofy and having a good time and dancing. So all of those things I think for older children are going to really allow you to have that lightheartedness with them. And that silly time with them is just going to naturally just lower everyone's kind of system to feel a little bit more at ease and more safety within themselves.
Yeah, no, I mean it is a true testament that really play, you are never too old for play. Whether you are a parent that needs to incorporate play with their child or a teenager that I think that their lives are a lot more stressful than even when we were growing up. So I think bringing it back to play is a great way to connect with them on a less on all the time. So another reminder and things that we can do to connect better with our families.
Yeah, and I love how you mentioned that. Like, it's, I think a lot of times as adults, sometimes we lose that connection with who what lights us up and what brings us happiness and joy because we get into the stressors of life and raising children, and working and all of the things, and so it just becomes like this this barrier between what brings us joy and what we think is important. And so at the end of the day, reconnecting with who, like, you can't necessarily pour from an empty cup, right? And so if you fill your cup with joy and happiness, you're going to spread it with everyone around you, including your children. And so
Right.
that's just going to foster that relationship that you have with your family
Yeah.
altogether. So I think it's important for adults to look at inward and see what is your relationship with play. And I recently finished up with a client who shared how bringing more play into her life has really made a difference for her family. And she's back to dancing, something she loved to do but was so disconnected because of being in the thick of raising children. And now she's finding moments where she's dancing by herself and moments where she's dancing with her children and just reconnecting with that joy and happiness that is something that she a lot of times we become parents and we
Yeah.
forget who we were before, and so reconnecting with that has just allowed her to have just more meaningful experiences with her family.
Right. Well, I think sometimes just stopping and getting in the mindset to play is huge. I know for myself, my kids love to play hide and go seek. And it's not my favorite thing to do. There are other things I would probably rather do. But like once we actually get into the game and are playing, I look back and I'm like, "Ugh, I'm glad I did that." So I
Yeah,
think
I
that's
love
it's
that.
just actually just stopping what you're doing every once in a while and taking the time to do that.
Yeah, those are the memories they're gonna look back and they're gonna, remember and eventually do with their children, I'm sure one day, because those are the fun moments that you never forget.
Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today. You gave us a lot of great tips to take back and integrate into our families. And you do coaching with parents to help them all the time, whether it's this topic or other parenting challenges. What is the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure, absolutely. I always offer a free, complimentary discovery session. So if you want to dive deeper, like you said, if it's about play or if it's anything that any parenting struggles or anything you want more information about, I think what's great about coaching is, we have information all around us, but the coaching really helps that implementation. So that if you have some new habits that you want to start, that becomes consistent until it's, you know, a natural thing. So I always offer a free discovery session. You would just book through my website and pick a time that works for you. And I'll get to know a little bit more about your family dynamics, and then we can see if we're a good match to move forward.
Well, thank you again for joining us today. This is your second time with us, and we hope to have you back again to talk about more topics. So we look forward to seeing you again in the future. And thank you, everybody, for staying tuned. And we hope that you will go back and incorporate more play into your everyday life.
Yes. Thank you, Brittany.